Hello everybody, in Friendsville. I got friends. Alright, let's do part 2 of the game Thingy. So, trying to make a tabletop game together on YouTube. Talk to other people as well in my Discord and just people I know about this. So if you are interested in any of this kind of stuff, and want to have some discussions, feel free, comment, talk in the Discord, which is linked, or if you know me personally, then you know how to contact me, and I'm totally cool with that. So, let's get into this. So last time, we had a cannon that would fire. Pew. We had a cannon that would fire. Here we go. You know what? Let's make sure that looks more like a cannon. Yeah, there we go. That looks a bit more like a cannon. Kind of. That doesn't help. Man, I'm trying to do stuff. Whatever. And it lands in a spot, but it could land in areas around. Based off a normal distribution. So that's what we had last time. Ooh-bah. So now, let's try to think about the ship. The ship is firing on the port. So why is the ship firing on the port? Because it wants to quote-unquote destroy the port. For whatever reason. What do we count as destroyed? Let's say there's a certain threshold of buildings that are destroyed. Okay. And some threshold of morale. There we go. Wait, actually, is the lighting? No, the lighting's still not great. I'm not using as much natural light this time. So it's definitely going to look darker. But that also means that this is a little bit easier to see. So I might do this in the future. Probably not, but we'll see. So we have to consider these. In how the ship is going to behave. So let's go back to the idea that I talked about before in the AI. Let's say we have some sort of behaviors that have a chance of happening. Okay? We have some set of behaviors that are a chance of happening. And this might be what the this is what the ship, or the AI character, is trying to do. And so I'm going to go with the non-discrete, excuse me, the non-discrete, or non-deterministic, the more fuzzy kind of, what do they call it, the modest model. So instead of, you see one's the highest, you just choose one. Instead of that, we want to have it so you have a percent chance of, let's say, 33, so 1/3 chance of number 1, or 2/3, 66, and then a 1/3 over 1, which is a 1/6, and 1/6. So you have a 1/3, 2/3, 1/6, and 1/6 chance of anything happening. No, that's not here. There we go. 1/6 and 1/6. They match. Okay. So what that basically means is whatever, based off some sort of thing going on in the AI's head, you can just roll on this. And to make this simple for the players, we can have it so that it rounds into integers with for easy rolling. So you can have a table of so you can have like a D20, maybe a D100 if you want to get fancy, maybe a D6. So for the I really need to move my mic. This mic. There we go. Okay, I can see. So this situation here is a D6 situation, where maybe it would be a 1 through 4 on the 1, a 5, and then a 6 to roll to see what the AI does. Now the thing is, though, you want to make sure that the AI, whenever it's doing something, it's not super obvious what's going on. You want to both preempt so it's reactable, but you don't want to make it so obvious that it's just immediately solvable. So what I mean by that is, so let's say you want what the AI is doing to be completely reactable. Let's say it's 100% reactable. Then I'll just take the basic rock, paper, scissors example. And so rock, paper, scissors. Boom. So if the AI throws scissors, you throw rock. If they throw paper, you throw scissors, and so on. So that's what I mean by reactable. So you know what's going on, but yeah, you know what's going on, but not but. You know what's going on, so you can. There we go. So you can deal with it. But I don't want it to be like super easily, because if it's just a rock, paper, scissors scenario, and then I'm just having some AI choose one of these, you just choose one that beats it. Easy. But now let's say that it's a 10% chance of throwing paper and a 90% chance of throwing scissors. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. You'd still throw a rock here. That's still the play. But now it's not as deterministic, and it can be a bit more interesting. See where this leads. And now, let's say the AI raises their right arm before they throw. So, I don't know, I'm going to throw a person, but you're looking at them, so their right arm's going to be on your left. So they raise their right arm before they throw. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. But you can figure out over time that this actually corresponds to these numbers. So, we can use that to kind of store flags. And if this will start to get into some state machines. And this would all, while I'm going through this like kind of mathy part, the really interesting thing about this is what it eventually just runs down to is a just table. I mean, you're gonna have a few tables, but just have some behavior tables. You just link them together appropriately. So let's say that let's give the AI some moves. They can fire the cannon, which we went over before. Fire cannon. They can maneuver the ship. Let's just say move ship, so I don't have to spell maneuver. And they can, if they can fire the cannon, they can move the ship. And let's give them one more thing. They can send out boats. Send boats for like raiders to get on town. Oh yeah, and then aim cannon. Right, I wanted that one too. So these are the 4 things that they can do. That the AI can do. We're just going to put this to F, M, S, and A, as you can see. So I can erase that. So these are the final states that we'll have. We'll put them at the top for now. F, M, S, A. Okay, so we have the final states. And so now let me just create some sort of, I don't know, I'm going to make some things. Just make up some states. We'll figure this out later. This will be the start. We'll put ST for start. So I have some states and start at the bottom. So it starts here, it travels through here, and it gets to one of these 4 moves. Okay. So, let's just draw. States can move to multiple different states. Like this. So they're constantly moving up. And then they have a % chance to move to these different states. So this one, let's say it's a 1/6, 1/6, 4/6, 1/2, 1/2. And so this is going to look like a mess. I understand that. 9/10. 5/6, 1/6. It's going to keep on looking like this. I'm not going to fill out the entire thing, but you can see all the different states have a different possibility of going to another one. And maybe these can be changed by what's happening on the field. And so what that means is here we'll say, all right, this one's like raise the mast. Raise. This one is load cannons. Yeah, like raise the mast, loads the cannon, do all these things. Where what it'll come down to is a table. So let's take the start one. Let's say the starting table. On a 1, on a 2, and a 4 through 6. We're just rolling a d6 here. So on a 1, it'll raise. On a 4 through 6, it'll load. And let's just, I don't know, say yell. Let's say they're yelling. It'll just look like this. See this table over here. And so that's how the AI will just go throughout. It'll move through this area all around until eventually it hits a thing to do. And then depending on what the thing is, it can do other things and stuff. And this is how AI, this is a way that AI can work. As you can see, we have all these different % chances of something happening, and it keeps on moving to different things that it does until eventually it does something big. Maybe you can do small things around here. Maybe this fire is like a huge volley of like 10 shots, but over here, maybe when they yell, they fire 1 shot or something. Stuff like that. And so this makes the AI character come a lot more alive. With these different tables and stuff. And now let's do the last thing. Let's do one last thing. Let's think about how these tables could be affected. So let's say the ship itself has some sort of resources. Okay? Which I guess if you consider health here, yeah, it's definitely going to have resources that can be affected by the player. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just have some resources. Some bars representing resources. They can be at different levels. Okay. And then once it hits certain markers, I'll put them here. once it hits certain triggers, like it's hit here on this one, then maybe you go from that tree. I'm just going to draw it like that because it was just that tree going up. Maybe you can go from there to, once it hits this right here, then it's like, oh, okay, I was here. Let's move to this tree. Ooh. And now let's move over here in that tree. So you can do that by having different resources going up and down. You can have it by the player attacking the ship. The player, maybe it's not necessarily responding to its own resources, but it's responding to the player resources. I know one thing I want to explore in this game is the player having to manage morale of the town and the people defending the town or the port compared to the ship. Like the ship might be trying to lower your morale so you're not as effective. There's also going to be an AI element of that. So maybe you can, if it sees that your morale like plummets, then it might stop doing morale-based attacks. And if your morale, or if like your morale plummets, maybe that means you're really weak to a certain kind of attack. So it can just go like, maybe if it sees some morale trigger, let's say your morale is another bar. The trigger's here. And if you can think of it that way, then once it sees that trigger, then it goes from one of these things to, it can go just to a very explicit, do this action. Maybe that moves it back over here. The point with these kinds of trees is obfuscation. So it makes it less obvious what the AI is doing. It makes it act more like a real person. But at the end of the day, it will still be a predictable thing. And that's the point, because you think about these things when you're fighting against AIs. I'm going to just erase this for now. When you're fighting against all these different AI in games and stuff, you think of them as their own thing, but a really well-tuned AI, you should think of fighting the AI like you're fighting a person. So you just find out what their little things are. I was saying to my one friends, because every once in a while when I'm playing Soul Calibur, I get really, really good at just blocking all the lows and just breaking all the grabs, and you just can't touch me. And people ask like why you can do this or you do that. And it's just like, well, sometimes you guys get into a certain position. Everybody has a little dance they do. Whether it's you literally a little dance, you shuffle around. Whether it's you move this way and then you do that. Everybody has little ticks, little tells they do in a lot of situations. And if you figure them out and they don't stop doing that, they don't figure out that they're doing it, then you can get them. You can hit them for it. But everybody has that to some degree or another. And so with this whole AI system, it's the same thing. There's all these different things like, what does raising the mast mean? What does it mean if the cannons glow red? I don't know. I'm making stuff up here. But thinking about what all that means, well, once you play it enough and you figure it out, you get a feel for it, or you just look at the tables if you really want, then it's like, oh, this means it's probably going this way, this means it's probably going that way. I've been in this position before where it's like near the beginning of the game and the cannons glow red a lot, and then it raised the mast. That means it's probably going to go this direction, so we have to get ready for this. Yeah, you get experience with it, you learn how the AI works. And, yeah. And maybe you can even, I gave you all of those percentages in that whole tree. You can have different characters that have the same exact equipment. And this is like fighting in a fighting game where you have two players. Man, I saw this podcast recently. People were talking about D&D, and they're talking about how people don't have this culture around other games where you don't play other games differently. You always play them the same. You don't have like different pockets of people not playing games differently, and it's just so not true. That part of the podcast I completely disagreed with, because if you have a Cassandra player in Soul Calibur 6, SE6, you have Cassandra, she has her moveset. But then the way that I play Cassandra, I'm just going to put Apple, versus the way KDZ plays Cassandra are two totally different types of Cassandra. KDZ focused a lot more on the 236Bs, the kind of, what do they call it? The Death Fists. That's I know that's a Tekken thing, but a lot of Cassandra players call that the Death Fist. KZ would focus more on the Death Fist, whereas I would focus more on just the constant pressure type of stuff. That's what I wanted to do a bit more. And you can have these two totally different people who use the same moveset totally different ways. And in the same way, I showed you those trees with those percentages. Let's say, let's do something here real quick. Let's say 1/2 and 1/2. The base character uses the equipment as a 1/2, 1/2. Another character could theoretically, with the same exact equipment, take that same exact tree, but instead, it's 5/6 and 1/6. Now you roll a d6 instead of flipping a coin. And this one goes here 5/6 of the 5/6 of the time. Bleh. What percentage is that? You know it. 6 doesn't divide evenly until 100. Bleh. It's 1/3 of 50 divided by or times 5. Yeah, I'm not doing that math in my head. Still, on here maybe on a 1 through 6. Or, sorry, 1 through 5, and here's on a 6. You roll a 1 through 5, you go this way. You roll 1 through 6, you go that way. And so that's how you can have an AI tree. And an interesting AI in just a tabletop game. I know a game that does this decently well is Pandemic, which is a bit of a interesting game for current times. But yeah, Pandemic's a great game that's like that. I'm looking at something a little more motivated. Pandemic uses kind of a deck of cards. But, yeah. That's what we got. So, that's the thing on overall AI stuff. Some of these things, I said that I want to make this in front of the camera. Some things I will say that some of the tweaking of the numbers, some of the tweaking of the exact behaviors, that's stuff that's going to take some consideration. That's stuff that's going to take some time that I'm not going to do on camera. But, yeah, if I do it, I'll throw it up on Itch, and I'll give you guys the link and everything. So, that's been me. Goodbye. See you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and ring the bell, because that helps a lot. Thank you.